We're switching over to Unit 5, News and Current Events. We'll talk about changes to news, attention to news, and to start with changes to news, I do have a video, and I am going to stop share so we can watch that and do a new share. All right, I did it without a pause. Good. All right, so pay attention for the next couple minutes watching this video.
How do you know what's happening in your world? The amount of information just a click away may be limitless, but the time and energy we have to absorb and evaluate it is not. All the information in the world won't be very useful unless you know how to read the news. To your grandparents, parents, or even older siblings, this idea would have sounded strange. Only a few decades ago, news was broad-based. Your choices were limited to a couple of general interest magazines and newspapers of record, and 3 or 4 TV networks, where trusted newscasters delivered the day's news at the same reliable time every evening. But the problems with this system soon became apparent as mass media spread. While it was known that authoritarian countries controlled and censored information, a series of scandals showed that democratic governments were also misleading the public, often with media cooperation. Revelations of covert wars, secret assassinations, and political corruption undermined public faith in official narratives presented by mainstream sources. This breakdown of trust in media gatekeepers led to alternative newspapers, radio shows, and cable news competing with the major outlets and covering events from various perspectives. More recently, the internet has multiplied the amount of information and viewpoints, with social media, blogs, and online video turning every citizen into a potential reporter. But if everyone is a reporter, nobody is, and different sources may disagree not only on opinions, but on the facts themselves. So how do you get the truth, or something close? One of the best ways is to get the original news unfiltered by middlemen. Instead of articles interpreting a scientific study or a politician's speech, you can often find the actual material and judge for yourself. For current events, follow reporters on social media. During major events such as the Arab Spring or the Ukrainian protests, newscasters and bloggers have posted updates and recordings from the midst of the chaos. Though many of these later appear in articles or broadcasts, keep in mind that these polished versions often combine the voice of the person who was there with the input of editors who weren't. At the same time, the more chaotic the story, the less you should try to follow it in real time. In events like terrorist attacks and natural disasters, today's media attempts continuous coverage even when no reliable new information is available, sometimes leading to incorrect information or false accusations of innocent people. It's easy to be anxious in such events, but try checking for the latest information at several points in the day rather than every few minutes, allowing time for complete details to emerge and false reports to be refuted. While good journalism aims for objectivity, media bias is often unavoidable. When you can't get the direct story, read coverage in multiple outlets, which employ different reporters and interview different experts. Tuning into various sources and noting the differences lets you put the pieces together for a more complete picture. It's also crucial to separate fact from opinion. Words like think, likely, or probably mean that the outlet is being careful, or worse, taking a guess. And watch out for reports that rely on anonymous sources. These could be people who have little connection to the story, or have an interest in influencing coverage, their anonymity making them unaccountable for the information they provide. Finally, and most importantly, try to verify news before spreading it. While social media has enabled the truth to reach us faster, it's also allowed rumors to spread before they can be verified, and falsehoods to survive long after they've been refuted. So before you share that unbelievable or outrageous news item, do a web search to find any additional information or context you might have missed, and what others are saying about it. Today we are more free than ever from the old media gatekeepers who used to control the flow of information. But with freedom comes responsibility. the responsibility to curate our own experience and ensure that this flow does not become a flood, leaving us less informed than before we took the plunge.
Again, this is really super relevant today. And oh, I think I'm unmuted now. Okay, this is really relevant in today's world, as you I'm sure know. So something that I want to highlight there is the difference between traditional news media and alternative news media. I don't know if they called it alternative news media, but and how tricky it can be to actually identify a news source. So especially in the digital age that we're in right now. A lot of people say they get their news from social media. It's important to note that social media is not a news source. Yet, news sources can exist on social media. So, to get your news from Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, that's not a news source. That's just a platform in which you receive news. A news source, a traditional news source, would be like Associated Press or BBC or NBC or Fox News or any traditional news media. Traditional news media is also referred to as legacy media in some situations, as opposed to alternative media, which is a broader term. When you think about podcasts that are created by non-journalists. So the go-to example, I think Joe Rogan has deemed himself as a news source, and that's he's entertainment. He falls into that category. And as far as like alternative media, he doesn't have a degree in journalism like the reporter that you're watching on a traditional news channel. He actually has a degree in finance. Um, but that would be considered alternative media. And that's not me taking a political stance on Joe Rogan's podcast. That's just the most recognizable form of alternative media that I can use for an example. So, all that said, it's important to understand where you're getting your news information from. Alternative media, too, this is something else to note, is generally more biased, and that can be on either side of the spectrum. That can be on more conservative leaning or liberal leaning. But generally speaking, alternative media is more biased and isn't necessarily um, interested in presenting factual, unbiased information. So, okay, all that said, I'm gonna end this video and start a new one.